Okay, in the Cisco CCNA curriculum, one of the problems associated with frame relay static mapping is the problem of split horizon. Now, split horizon is in effect by default on the routers with on the interfaces basically, so that we don't have routing loops. And what is the rule of split horizon? The rule of split horizon is that if a router receives a routing update from another router, so let's say this router sends a RIP routing update to this router, then it cannot send that information back out of the same interface. But here's the problem in this type of scenario, right? Which is kind of, I believe, a hub and spoke scenario, is that if this router sends an update to this router, well, this router would need to send it back out the same interface, right, to get to this router, right? So how is he going to be able to basically pass on the routing update to the other router, right, without sending it, right? Now, when we did the static mapping, we put the broadcast command in there, and it seems like that bypasses it. But normally, with the problem of split horizon, routing updates can't go out the same interface that they came in on. So in that situation, what can happen is what you could do to bypass that is you could turn off split horizon. So if you wanted to turn off split horizon, what you would do is you'd go into the router, and what you would do is you would go into the interface. So I'd say interface serial 2/0, all right, and you'd say no IP split horizon, right? And if you did that, you would be turning off split horizon. But if you turn off split horizon on the serial interface right here, then you could end up with routing loops on your network, because split horizon is in effect to solve routing loops. So the better way, or the preferred way to set up frame relay in this network is, instead of doing static map, is to do sub interfaces with the frame relay, and that's what we're going to do this time, right? Okay, if we're going to set this up for sub interfaces, we're going to have to come up with a different addressing scheme across these serial links right here. So sub interfaces means instead of this serial interface on this router having just one interface with one IP address, it's going to have two sub interfaces, and so it'll have two basically virtual interfaces, one that will go this way and another one that will go this way, right? So we can have 10.0.0.1 here, and this guy can be 10.0.0.2, but on the other sub interface, so that's one sub interface, on the other sub interface what we could do is we could say, alright, if that's going to be the case, then what we'll do is we'll say that we'll make it a /24, okay? So it'll be 10.0.0 network, right? And we'll make another network for the other sub interface. And on the other network, we'll have 10.0.1.1, all right, /24. So that's two different networks, right? All right, two different networks. You have the 10.0.0 network and the 10.0.1 network now. Host 1 on each one, but that's two separate networks for each sub interface, right? And so now this guy over here, he'll be 10.0.1.2/24. And so he'll be on the same network as this guy, and then now we need new addresses for over here. Let's move these DLCIs over so that we can get the another network over here. So I'll say, okay, well, this guy will be 10.0.2.1, and this guy will be 10.0.2.2. Once again, /24 /24, right? Okay, so the 10.0.2 network, 10.0.2 network. So these two sub interfaces will be connected. These two sub interfaces will be connected. and then these two sub interfaces will be connected. And once again, just to remind myself, /24. Right? So these are the sub interface addresses that we're going to create when we redo these routers, right? Okay, since these routers were configured for static mappings, we're going to have to go in and we're going to have to undo some of our previous configurations. So we'll start with, let's say, router 3 here this time. All right, and router 3 was, the old address was 10.0.0.3. That was his old address, right? So we're going to have to get rid of that. So what I'm going to do is open up router 3 and go to the command line interface. Okay, enable, whoops, Control-Shift-6 to get out of that. Enable, Conf-T, right? Interface configuration mode, global configuration mode, interface serial 2/0. That takes me into the interface, and I'm going to do a no IP address 10.0.0.3 and then 255.0.0.0, right? That gets rid of our IP address, all right? Also, I'm going to say no encapsulation frame relay, so that if I get rid of the frame relay encapsulation, that'll hopefully get rid of my static mapping. So if I do that, all right, the static mapping will hopefully be gone. To double check, Control-C, hit enter to go back to privileged exec, do a show run for show running dash configuration, and then C, and you can see now interface serial 2/0 has no IP address, has no configuration. So we're good to go, and we can now reconfigure that interface. And this is how you do it for sub interfaces. So you say conf T to go to global configuration mode, interface serial 2/0. That takes me into the interface, right? And now that I'm in the interface, I'm going to not give it an IP address because I'm going to put the IP addresses on the sub interfaces, not on the interface. But what I do need to do is change the encapsulation to frame relay. So I change that to frame relay, and I'm going to do a no shutdown to make sure that it's up. So now the encapsulation on the interface is frame relay, and the interface is up, and now we can go into the sub interfaces. Now, sub interface, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to name these sub interfaces. So I think I'll name them after the DLCIs, which in this case will be 301 and 302, right? So let's see here. So we'll say interface serial 2/0 dot 301, right? And I can't do it. I'm not sure if I can do a dot 301, but I could. Let's see here. Yeah, we could try it. Say dot 301 and then point to dash point. Okay, and hit enter, and looks like I'm in sub interface mode. So I did serial 2/0.301. So now I'm in sub interface 301, right? And now I can give it an IP address. So IP address, and I want to look to see what is the IP address we're going to use. We're going to do the 10.0.1 network number 2, host 2. So 10.0.1.2, okay? And that'll be a 255.255.255/24 subnet mask. So there's my IP address, right? Bandwidth 64. Frame relay interface dash DLCI, and the DLCI number, which in this case will be 301, and I'm done for that interface. Now I need to switch to the other interface, the other sub interface. So I'm going to say interface serial 2/0 dot 302. point, and this is important, to point. Okay, now I'm in the other subinterface. I can set the IP address, which is going to be on a different network. It's going to be on the 10.0.2.2. Okay, so 10.0.2.2, host 2, 10.0.2 network. Alright, that's the IP address. And then I can just put in the bandwidth 64 command, and then the frame relay map, frame relay frame dash relay interface dash DLCI, and this is going to go to DLCI 302 because it's router 3, and the 2 stands for going to router 2, right? So that's DLCI 302, going to router 2. See the DLCIs? Alright. And hit enter. And now that's done. So now I've got that router done.